it's no secret now about what happens in episode 5. I'm assuming that if you're watching me talking about this, about episode 5, that you've watched either the dub or the sub of episode 5, so I'm just going to go spoilerific. This is a pretty big, important episode, right? This is the big gotcha moment of the series. And a lot hinges on the performance of these characters. Honestly, I'm torn on which one I like better, because they're both really, really good. Especially, I gotta give it to Josh Grell for the English dub of Armin. Like, Armin sounds like a real person now. Like he did before, he always did. But, he breathes a lot of life. You really get a sense that he's a good support for Eren. He really wants to be there for him. Despite how terrified he is. You can see him visibly shaking at one point, and Eren, is kind of the same thing. He reciprocates that same, in one of the rare moments where he's not super pissed off, he turns to Armin and says, "Hey, you know what? Like, I'm here for you, buddy. Like, this is gonna be great." And he's super optimistic, and again, the way they play off each other is really good. And Bryce as Eren actually steps up the plate here too. I really like the scene with him and Jean. I'm not calling him John because that's not his name. It's Jean. The scene with Jean when Jean's freaking out about, I was just about to go to the interior, and him and Eren have a dialogue back and forth. Eren convinces him in a rather strangely worded way to stand his ground, and it's really good. I like it. They have an interesting dynamic. They always did, and I like feeling that the actors are for the English dub are not only picking up on it, but they're really trying to take it to the next level. Whether or not they've succeeded, that's one of the things that makes this tough for me to decide which I like more, the dub or the sub. But just the fact that they're trying, they really are putting an honest effort, I really appreciate that, especially after the disaster that was last week's episode.
I was 1 day shy of shipping off to the MP! Jean, get a hold! No! Not all of us are suicidal!
Damn it! Shut up for a second! We're trained for this! What do you think the last 3 years were about?
I should also actually point out that in terms of translating the lines themselves over, that's another thing that, another factor that's making this difficult to decide between the dub or the sub, because they've more or less done an exact transcript of the Japanese with subtitles. There's not really hardly any changes at all. There's no weird, awkward, forced dialogue. It's almost spot on translation, which is a good way to play it safe and make sure that you stay loyal to it. And that's also really tough, because I don't think a lot of people realize a lot of the dialogue in the original, the Japanese with subtitles, would sound weird if it was directly translated into an English dub. Little word changes here and there, but they're not like last week's. The changes in the words do not affect the meaning of the line or the purpose of the line. They don't change character motivations. They don't, it stays consistent, which is exactly what I wanted after last week. That's what I wanted with last week, but I didn't get it. After last week now, I'm getting it. One of the ones I want to talk about the most actually is Commander Pixis, who is played by a guy that his name escapes me. It's Elliot something, but I know him from Bakano, and I know other people know him from other things as well, but I know him as the old man from Bakano. He's also the narrator in Space Dandy, believe it or not. It's hard to hear it, but if you go back and listen to the narrator Space Dandy, you can kind of pick up on it. I really like him, and I also really he's got a great natural voice, and at the same time, what they do with his dialogue, because Pixis is characterized as being a very, I think the exact wording is an eccentric man. He's very weird and quirky in that kind of way, and they do play up on that more in the English dub. And I actually kind of like it, because it's not overplayed to the point of, like, comedy. It's not overplayed to the point where you don't take the character seriously. It's just the perfect Midas touch where he does speak a little bit differently than everyone else, but at the same time you get what he's saying. it's a weird balance because again it sounds eccentric but it doesn't sound forced either, and that's a sign of good voice direction, is when both the actor and the script that they've come up with work so well together. That's how you can tell that you've got a good generally how you can tell you've got a good director in charge of your dub, and this is right there. If you need proof that there is a good talent in the director's chair of the Attack on Titan dub, Pixis is a very good indication of that. I really like him a lot. I hope to see more of that.
こりゃうまい酒ですな。戦場での友として慎んで頂戴いたしますぞ。
This vintage is worthy of your good taste. One man of action to another, I obsequiously accept it as a gift.
予算か。バルトゴ。法は平素通り平和で穏やかな一日をお過ごしくだされ。
That's enough, soldier. Good day, sir. I wish you another opulently appointed day of sloth and tranquility.
If I really had to nitpick... No, I didn't really have any negatives with this episode. I guess I noticed that one guy that looks like he needs sleep, I forgot his name, his voice cracks at one point. But, I mean, it's Attack on Titan. People are screaming left and right. I expect people's voice to be cracking more often. We can talk a little bit about the changes visually. You notice previous episodes there have been upgrades or new scenes added into the American version now. And you can really tell in this episode. They added an extra scene in the scene where Eren and the trainees are going to support the Vanguard. They, instead of cutting to Eren's face and then like a repeat clip of his belt clip fire, they actually, it's all one fluid shot. Also, when they zoom in on the Titans off in the distance, it's not new footage, but they've cleaned it up. When you stack the two next to each other, you can tell there's a pretty noticeable difference between the two. They've gone back and they've touched it up a little bit. They did the same thing with the Santa Claus Titan. I know everybody calls him the Grandpa Titan. I call him the Santa Claus Titan. He looks like Santa Claus to me. They've gone back and they've touched him up a little bit too. He's not quite as derpy looking as before. Granted, some of the Titans are going to look derpy no matter what you do with it. But in terms of the big moments, like Eren screaming and chasing after that one Titan, and Armin flipping out when Eren gets killed, I don't think it's fair to compare the two and try and pick one, because they both do such a good job. I think I still like the original Japanese version of those scenes a teensy bit better. Probably from bias, I'll admit it. It's probably just because that was the voice I heard first. That's when I first experienced the emotion of that moment, so that's what's been set into my brain. Having to replace that with something else is difficult for me. There's a mental barrier there. So I fully admit that that's bias. However, I still got mad props to Josh Grell. His scream at the end still put a chill up my spine.
Eren! No!
Mikasa turning around, they touched that part up too. It looks a lot cleaner. Almost to the kind of the point of almost funny. Honestly, I don't feel comfortable picking one over the other, because I feel like if I pick one over the other, then the other, like, people are going to think like, oh, you didn't like that one. Well, no, I didn't. It's not that I didn't like it. Both the dub and the sub of this episode 5 are really, really well done. So yeah, no point today. I'm washing my hands of this. I'm pleading the fifth. I will just say that I am very happy. I'm very, very happy with this week's episode. I'm glad that we could kind of get away from whatever happened in the last episode. And I'm very happy to see all of Twitter flipping the fuck out with what happened at the end. But that's what you get for being stubborn and waiting for the dub. Next week is episode 6, very character-based episode. We're basically going to be just talking about Mikasa and her, the voice actress for her. So I'll see you guys then. Take care. Bye.